Qualichem, supporting the water treatment community since 1990. At Qualichem, we say the blender matters. And here are some things that matter at Qualichem. An unparalleled support staff. We have 3 certified water technologists on staff to support your technical needs. This means you get the expertise you need from someone who has walked in your shoes. With one of the strongest support staffs in the industry, Qualichem offers support in technical, sales, application, and lab support. To find out more about Qualichem, go to scalinguph2o.com/Qualichem. Once again, that's scalinguph2o.com/Qualichem. At Qualichem, we know the blender matters. Ensure the longevity of your industrial heat transfer equipment with our comprehensive corrosion coupon analysis. Don't just send your corrosion coupons to any lab. Send your corrosion coupons to a lab that understands your water treatment needs. B Labs is run by water treaters for water treaters. At B Labs, every corrosion coupon report includes a picture of your corrosion coupon before and after cleaning, because a picture is worth 1,000 words. To find out more, go to scalinguph2o.com/B Labs and up your corrosion coupon game. Once again, that's scalinguph2o.com/BELABS. B Labs, corrosion coupon reports done right. Welcome to the Scaling Up H2O podcast, the podcast where we scale up on knowledge so we don't scale up our systems. I'm Trace Blackmore, the host of this amazing podcast, this award-winning podcast, and this podcast that is in the top 2% of all podcasts that are on this planet. That is just such an amazing honor. And I want to thank you, the Scaling Up Nation, for allowing all of that to come true. 8 years ago, when I started this podcast, I had no idea, one, how much I was going to love doing this podcast each and every week, but also what this podcast will mean to so many people that we now call the Scaling Up Nation. Folks, when I go to AWT events or other industry events, people love to come up to me and let me know that they enjoy this podcast. They learn things on this podcast. They get motivated from this podcast. And I just think that that is amazing. I remember when I was servicing accounts every day, driving from account to account, and how lonely this job can be. And so many people have told me that just the fact that they have this podcast to listen to, that there's so much content that they have in the Scaling Up H2O library that they can listen to. One, hearing this podcast, they don't feel alone anymore, but also knowing that thousands of industrial water treaters are listening to this podcast at the same time that they are listening to this podcast makes them feel that they are part of a community. Because we are part of a community, we are the Scaling Up Nation. And one of the goals that I had when I started this podcast well over 8 years ago was to help raise the bar in the industrial water treatment industry, because there is just so much information out there and there's so many people out there that are in this industry, and sometimes getting the people to the information is a little difficult, especially when you're doing all the hard work that we have to do in our day-to-day. I wanted to make sure that I created a place that was easy for people to tune in and learn about what was new, what was exciting, things they didn't know in the industrial water treatment world, and make them want to make themselves better one day at a time, one task at a time. And Nation, I am so humbled to say that so many of you have come up and told me that you have done that very thing. So thank you, Scaling Up Nation, for allowing me to come on every single week and deliver this podcast to you. And thank you for each and every one of you in the Scaling Up Nation for helping all of us raise the bar in the industrial water treatment industry. Well, Nation, as you know, we celebrate a holiday that is bigger than any other holiday each and every year. And of course, that is Industrial Water Week. And Industrial Water Week is right around the corner. It is the first full week of October each and every year. And that is going to take place on October 6th this year. And Nation, this is going to be the celebrations of all celebrations because we have a surprise for you. And I'm going to let the cat out of the bag because I'm so excited about it. We're going to have a brand new Detective H2O for you each and every day during Industrial Water Week. Folks, it's going to be fantastic. I've had the privilege of working with James McDonald to make sure that we have some of the best episodes that have ever been released for Detective H2O. Of course, all of them are amazing. These are just going to add to the amazingness that is Detective H2O. But Nation, this year, we're going to do something a little bit different. Now, James has been so kind and allowed me to do some guest voices. I know a lot of you love my accents that I do. I try. Well, we are inviting others to voice Detective H2O characters this year. And Nation, one of the ways that we are going to celebrate this year is that you are going to be able to guess that guest voice during each and every day when we release a brand new Detective H2O during Industrial Water Week. So follow along on our social media. You can join us on LinkedIn. We're going to have some fun things that we're doing through the entire week of Industrial Water Week, including, can you guess the guest voice on that brand new Detective H2O? Now, here's a hint. Every single voice you have heard before because they have been featured guests on the Scaling Up H2O podcast. So we will see who guesses best, and we're going to have so much fun starting October 6th, and that is when we are celebrating Industrial Water Week. One Water Summit is the nation's premier gathering of water leaders in the United States. They've been doing this since 2016, and it's all about innovation inspired by collaboration. We're going to have all of this information for you about One Water Summit on our events page. And while you're there, also check out the third annual Water Efficiency and Conservation Symposium. That's taking place August 6th through 8th in Chicago. So this is all about bringing together water practitioners across the North American continent for 3 days of interactive sessions, peer-to-peer collaboration, and meaningful networking opportunities. This, again, is going to be in Chicago, and we're going to have all of that information for you on our show notes page. And here's a fun event that you're going to want to attend. It's called Water Jam 2025, taking place in Virginia Beach, Virginia, September 8th through 11th. And this is a joint annual meeting of the Virginia Section American Water Works Association and the Virginia Water Environment Association. They've been doing this since 2002. And this is all about the latest trends as well as a variety of all things water related. In addition, attendees can sign up to attend workshops, service projects, and facility tours. And we're going to have all of that information for you on our events page. Nation, you can always go to scalinguph2o.com/events for all of the events that we mentioned on the Scaling Up H2O program, as well as all the ones that we do not have time to mention. Folks, this is a treasure trove for everything that is going on in the water community. and you don't want to miss something that could be in your backyard. So make sure that you know what's going on by going to scalinguph2o.com/events. Nation, we started out talking about Detective H2O and Industrial Water Week. And of course, we have our friend James McDonald to thank for both of those items. And of course, we know James as our weekly host as What Do You Know?
Hello and welcome to What Do You Know? The game show where we find out what do you know about industrial water treatment, drop by drop. So pump up your brain, take out that test kit of knowledge, and prepare to answer this week's question on What Do You Know? Today's question is, are conductivity and total dissolved solids the same thing? No, they are not the same thing, but they can be related. Conductivity measures a water's ability to conduct current. Total dissolved solids, or TDS, is the concentration of dissolved solids in a water solution. Conductivity can be quickly measured with a meter or probe. Total dissolved solids involves evaporating a volume of water to dryness and weighing the remaining solids. Typically, though, the higher the dissolved solids, the higher the conductivity, and vice versa. A correlation between the two can often be found, but should be verified on a regular basis. A common assumption used is total dissolved solids is 65 to 75% of the conductivity, depending upon the ions present. I'm James McDonald, and thanks for playing along with us. Stay tuned for next week's episode of What Do You Know?
Thank you, James. And Nation, if you need to get caught up on What Do You Know, you can always go to the Scaling Up H2O webpage, and we've got all of them listed right there for you, so you can test yourself on every single What Do You Know. Well, Nation, I can't wait to introduce our next guest to you. Here's that interview. My lab partner today is Jacob Deak, Marketing and Inside Sales Director at Pyxis Lab. Jake, welcome to the Scaling Up H2O podcast.
Thank you, Trace. No, seriously, thank you so much for having me on here.
I'm super excited to have you on. I always have a fun time wherever trade show you guys are at. You're always having fun, and you always listen to this podcast. So you guys are some of my favorite people.
No, well, we appreciate that. And then Matt and I are also constantly excited to see you at AWT and always looking forward to see you if you're at any of our trade shows.
Yeah, you guys are always having fun at your booth. You'll see some people that'll be sitting behind a desk or something. They'll be on their cell phones and texting. I don't even think you guys have chairs in there. You're out and you're grabbing people in and talking to them and taking pictures and doing social media. You guys know how to do it.
Oh, I appreciate that. Well, in particular, Matt and myself tend to have a lot of fun with each other. So, but then the entire team, yeah, we like to have a good time.
So, Jake, before we get into asking you the really hard questions, do you mind telling the Scaling Up Nation a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, one, in terms of the water industry, born into it, obviously, my father, Jeff Deak, it's been a part of his life for so long. So I was able to kind of experience it growing up, him being in the field, being an operator, being a salesman. And so I was able to really have a firsthand knowledge of everything. And then past that, I got kind of pinched into a situation during college where I studied media at Temple University. And then COVID hits during my graduation. And Matt gives me the chance to come work for Pyxis. And so here I am now about 4 to 5 years into the water industry and feeling like a professional, at least trying to be one.
So did you not get to walk for your graduation because of COVID?
No walk, no celebration.
Man.
I know. It was hard for sure.
So I also worked with my dad. He's the one that taught me water treatment. I know what it's like, but how is that for you? What's it like for you?
At times, obviously, the boundary between, family and work. But other than that, no, we're pretty efficient together, to be quite honest with you. And he's obviously helped raise me and then taught me a lot in my professional career in terms of sales. And obviously his knowledge is pretty expansive in the marketplace, specifically industrial. So he's kind of groomed me into this world, and then with the help of Matt too, I feel really well rounded.
Any fun stories around that?
Um, in terms of, super cool to travel with my dad, right? Like now I have this opportunity to work alongside him, but then we're going to Amsterdam for Aquatech. We get to travel and work together. So it strengthens our relationship personally.
So, how have you seen the company change since you've been involved?
Overall, massive overhaul. It started out really small in Massachusetts, led by an initiative of my dad and Kai Bin Chow. Then Matt joined, so we moved to Colorado. We nearly double in size, and then we just continued to gain momentum from there. Now we're in Houston, and the company has expanded into all sorts of different marketplaces, has created such new technology, so many different pieces of technology, both offline, handheld versus inline. And so it's all around the company has transformed.
And you guys seem to be really into hiring people and working with people all around your core values. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So one big portion of it is where everybody came from. Matt, Kaibin, my dad, a lot of General Electric guys that were hands-on in the field. And so that kind of transferred into how we identify ourselves, being the friend to the water treater, the friend to the end user. And that has led to a lot of new acquisitions for us, like Ian Militello is one of our new VPs, as well as Doug Vance. So we get those guys that understand the base level and understand the day-to-day struggles.
One of your taglines is water treaters deserve better tools. I love that.
Again, like harkening back to like the entire brand, I guess the vision of the company is to solve problems for those guys out in the field. How can we mitigate as much failure in the system? How can we help solve a lot of the day-to-day issues that they see?
That was actually something I wanted to ask you about because you guys are very innovative and people do call and say, I really wish you guys had a sensor that did this, or I have a sensor that does this, but here's the problem I have. It gets fouled. When you get a call like that, how do you process that and how do you turn it into an actual product?
Having direct communication to a lot of the guys out in the field, a lot of these end users were able to learn about, specific instances, the OxyPanel Plus, right? We get told over and over again by the end user, by these operators, that they can't measure for chlorine in a challenging water application. They see constant failure. There's tubing that gets plugged. They have to constantly rip it out, constantly clean the machine. And we learned a lot about membrane technology in the cooling world in terms of chlorine. And so thus the OxyPanel, you get a amperometric sensor, non-membrane, non-wet chemistry with a brushing reservoir to clean the head of the sensor continuously. So we mitigate those problems in the field. Similarly with Kaibin and his development of the ST500, we have compensation for color and turbidity while monitoring for PTSA tracer in these industrial applications. That's all spawned off of the headache from the water user, but Kaibin has a love for that tracer product, I'll tell you that much.
So when you find a solution like the Oxy panel, do you go back to that person that was having the issue and say, hey, you helped us develop this?
Yeah, there's a lot of the time they become like a first end trial where they're taking on that prototype that we create based on their problem. And then next thing you know, it evolves into a solution over the course of 2 to 3 years where it's vetted, tested in the field.
Have you ever tried to develop something and it just failed miserably?
To be honest, and I want to like knock on wood here, is not yet. Not like anything that has failed. We also have a grit to us, and I think Kaibin in particular has a super great grit to him where he doesn't accept a failure. It kind of just keeps moving. So even if there is a trial that might have a mishap, it's easily corrected, and then he just has this hunger to make it work.
So I'm a process guy. So you get that phone call in. What do you do? How do you even start to develop something?
It's again walking through those problems, seeing what are the different things that people are using currently. What's the different instrumentation that's being currently operated by these guys, and then what are the small things that impact their day to day that keeps them from doing their job efficiently and effectively. And from there, we kind of create a good idea of what we have already in our technology and how we can apply that to a new marketplace.
And then how do you go through the different iterations of Rev 1, Rev 2? Oh, Rev 3 was just a disaster. Let's forget we ever did that. Let's now go the next step.
It's kind of a day-to-day for our lead engineers and for Kybin and for this team to keep in contact with those guys, create new iterations. And a lot of our stuff is smart. So a lot of firmware design, a lot of internal algorithms that are being coded to the sensor platform. And so we're able to kind of troubleshoot that from the back end on a cloud as well as on the front end with them physically.
We had a client that we got to see the workings of the Coca-Cola Freestyle machine in its infancy. And it was just a bunch of network wires coming out of a bunch. It was the ugliest thing you have ever seen. Now you go to a restaurant and they're really cool. I'm assuming that's part of your process too. You get something really ugly. Hey, it works. Now, how do we make it sexy so people want to buy it?
Yeah, and that I kind of play into a good role there as the final tier, right, of creating an image to it almost. I mean, you can see some sensors that are just basically circuit board with the sensor eye and trying to fundamentally make it work. And then over the course of time, it develops a nice body to it. Even some of our current products that are more popular, you could say, like the Oxy panel and that non-amperometric sensor, that is right now even in the development of new iterations that can make it even better over the course of time. So soon the ST765 will be something that isn't as capable as our next version.
Now, maybe I'm not supposed to talk about this, but Matt showed it to me. So you tell me if it's super secret, privileged information. But
Sure.
You guys are developing this handheld meter sensor that will tell you exactly how much product you have on site simply by pointing it down into the reservoir that you have. That was so cool. Can we talk about that?
So are you talking about our portable radar level sensor that could be potentially?
Yes.
Yeah. So this guy is a configurable, you basically configure an NFC sticker and then you take one pocket portable radar sensor with you. You tap to the sticker, it understands the configuration you can constantly measure. So whether that's a tote of chemical or a small tank or a reservoir that has an open area, I'd have to see a little bit more as to the reservoir, but totes and tanks for sure, monitoring your chemical level so that you're properly dosing.
Matt showed that to me and he said, "Does this have any value?" I'm like, "Are you kidding? We're using like sticks now to figure this stuff out."
Yeah. That and like, I mean, it rids of the idea of having multiple level sensors in the field and then constantly have to tie it out to a controller or PLC. So instead, we get kind of a pocket radar level sensor.
Now, how did you get that idea? Which is an awesome idea, by the way. It's one I should have had. I didn't. You guys did.
So we recently developed radar sensors, like a full line of radar sensors, and we had, of course, our ultrasonic sensors as well for level. And we had users kind of approach us and say, "It's really cool with the battery operated variants of these radar and ultrasonic level sensors to take them around and change the configuration on our app to different tanks. So instead of having multiple, they just had one." It led Kybin and Matt and some of our lead engineers here to be like, why don't we just make it one? We can make it one. We can configure it to a sticker and make it one radar sensor for, I think, countless amounts of tanks. I don't know the exact limit on it yet, but yes, coming soon.
Because water treaters deserve better tools.
That's right. Better tools. Measure more with less. Yeah.
So your products are in tens of thousands of locations. What's one of the weirdest installs or applications that you have?
Yeah. So I talked to Matt, like specifically with PTSA, we've seen it used for leak detection to where we're actually pointing at specific areas in a system to understand where that leak's happening. You have the tracer product dosed throughout the entire system. Where is that tracer product lessening? And we're not picking it up on the ST500. So both the tracer product and the ST500 being utilized for a leak in a system is something that was pretty outstanding to us. I also had a little text with Kybin last night, just talking to him about PTSA. And I did want to share his words on this. He told me to tell you that the general story of PTSA is exciting. It's automatically dosing a treatment chemical. And that was a dream for him 20 years ago. So the fact that it is a reality now is a beautiful thing, and that many companies have tried so many different things, but nothing is more robust and more easy than PTSA tracing. And with the ST500, that's capable too. Me personally, with technology, I always get excited when we sell our refractometers to breweries or wineries, and we see it in more of a commercial, direct to consumer base. I always find that super fascinating. So the RT100 being utilized for either like sugar being infiltrating or leaving a system, or just the actual sugar content in beer, wine, you name it.
So they use the brick scale for that. Is that right?
Yeah, they'll use bricks. We can actually also trace alcohol content with the RT100, and some will use it for like their cooling systems. When they're cooling down the beer, they'll use like a glycol base or some kind of coolant, and then we'll utilize the RT100 for that as well. So it kind of fits into different portions of the application.
I had a brewery as my very first customer when I started this company, and they were getting started as well. They're really large now. You heard of them, Sweetwater?
Sweetwater, I think so, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, they were my very first customer, and they wanted to pay me in beer. And I said, my mortgage company doesn't take beer, guys. You've got to actually pay me
Yeah.
in something that I can pay my mortgage with. But they were just so cool to work with. And they taught me so much about the inner workings within the brewery. And then as they sold their shares, they started going around and consulting with other breweries. And they would say, hey, you need this guy. He really does a good job in water treatment. So I love working with breweries. So what are some of your products we can expect to see in breweries?
RT100 for sure, obviously, and then radar level sensors, so gauging the level, but mostly is the prism. In terms of the water quality, some might use pH or conductivity, but at the end of it all, it's mostly the alcohol content, brick sugar, and then food and beverage production. We do have the Oxy panel, our oxidizer series. So if you broaden that a little bit, probably some of the breweries, but more into food and beverage, the Oxy panel is pretty robust. And we're even starting to work on some things that might be for even harsher applications within food and beverage that is pretty sought after. I don't think I can say too much, but if you think super harsh applications and specific parameters that people want, we're working on that.
And of course, you guys have developed a really cool app. I want an app for this podcast, so we need to talk after the podcast on how I can do that. But why did you decide to develop an app? And then what does the app do that you couldn't do with just the unit itself?
Modern tech, modernizing the water technology sector of things, making it easier. Every day, I mean, we all know it. You're probably listening to it on your phone right now. The phone is much easier. You're taking what is it, 10 years ago, you're taking a laptop out to a cooling tower, right? So you need to take the phone. Obviously, we want to make it compatible with the phone. So Pyxis gives you a lot of those capabilities to quickly configure, calibrate, monitor, even download support documentation. So it was just an evolve with the times, right? Adapt or die. And we decided to adapt.
Now, you and I share a very prestigious award. We both are recipients of AWT's Innovation Award. What was that like when you got the phone call and you learned that you were going to get recognized for that at that year's convention?
That, I think, for Kaiben more than anything else, you can just see there's a photo. If you guys look it up either on our website or just probably on the AWT site as well, you can see the admiration of just the acknowledgement from Kaiben. And it meant the world to him, and obviously is something that means the world to us too. That was based predominantly on the innovation of the ST500, kind of revolutionizing the way in which PTSA is monitored and controlled, right? So no doubt it was impactful for him.
Well, that's really cool. I know that was probably the biggest honor I have ever received from having this podcast. So, really cool. And thank you, AWT, for recognizing both of us for that.
Yeah, love the AWT.
So, you're a media guy. You know all these things. You're teaching me things that I should be doing, which I'm going to take you up on. But what can we expect with a guy with your background? What's coming out of Pyxis because of that?
Well, trying to learn straight from you and trying to create a podcast where we're able to kind of discuss different things, discuss our technology. And again, kind of harkening back to what I just said with Pyxis is to adapt with the times. I was trained in media creation, whether it's video, photo, audio, and I want to communicate as much as possible how much we're here to help, how much we want to solve the problems that are ongoing in the field, regardless of the marketplace, and creating constant communication with end users, partners, distributors, anybody.
So tell us about this podcast.
We're going to call it In the Flow.
That's a great name.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Obviously, want to have you as the first guest because you're just, renowned in the industry with scaling up. So have to have you on for the first episode. But a general discourse, talking about the industry, talking about careers, and talking about how Pyxis can help or assist in any of these marketplaces.
So you're going to be doing on-site recordings where customers are having issues and now they don't because of Pyxis products?
Sure, I'll do a podcast in a refinery where you won't be able to hear me at all, but but we'll be able to. No, we'll talk about those things. Definitely some different situations where we've been able to kind of give an innovative piece of technology to better their days for sure.
I will say I'm really impressed with the technology around microphones. I've done some recordings at trade shows, at the AWT, for example, and I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to use this. This is so loud. Nobody's going to be able to hear me or who I'm interviewing, but it works. The microphone really does a good job of picking up what it's supposed to pick up.
We should test it by going out to, like I said, refinery, cooling tower. Let's go out there and see if it works.
All right. We're going to hold you to that. On location interviews is what we want.
All right.
Well, what else is Pyxis working on?
A lot of MPIs this year. So the portable radar sensor is one. A new version of the ST500 is set to launch later on this year. And we're trying to minimize maintenance as much as possible. So taking some pages out of the notebook from the Oxy panel, pages out of the notebook from our LT630 series, which is auto wiping TSS and turbidity for sludge basins and wastewater. So we're taking those playbooks, we're adjusting it to the ST500 and see if we can't produce something that makes it minimal maintenance. A lot of flow meter ideas coming our way. We have the FS100, and so we're going to try to create some cool other variants to the flow sensor that we launched last year.
Jake, why is this an exciting time to be in this industry?
It's rapidly evolving in terms of the technology, in terms of the efficiency and the way in which we conduct water treatment across any marketplace. Things are changing. And it's fun for somebody as green as myself to come see these applications, see how the technology is being influenced, and see how the operators on the day-to-day are being influenced. In fact, my younger brother is an operator in Pennsylvania at a wastewater facility. So full circle here for the Deak family. But it's cool to see even down to his level what changes on the day-to-day. So the industry's changing for sure.
How do you see AI being involved in that?
So literally yesterday, Matt and I were having a pretty deep conversation about DeepSeek, about ChatGPT, about a lot of these AI formats. Even in-house here, we're experimenting with AI. I see it becoming more efficient, creating more efficiency in the workplace and helping the operator streamline their treatment protocol. So I see it as a benefit. And I'm also intrigued as to how fast it's actually learning. It knows a lot, even just talking with some of these other entities, these AI entities. It understands a lot about a water treatment marketplace, and albeit all these different marketplaces, whether it's waste or drinking or cooling, it understands quite a bit. So it can definitely be implemented to create better efficiency.
AI is such an interesting topic to bring up in our industry because we have somebody from every generation in this industry, and every generation thinks differently when it comes to AI.
Yeah. There's some scary things that pop up, right? We've all watched iRobot. We've all seen the movies that kind of get you a little creeped out by it.
Well, I always think of Terminator. We're just activating
Terminator.
Skynet.
Arnold's going to come out of nowhere at a cooling tower. No. But no, yeah, it is true. There's hesitancy. Across any generation, there's going to be hesitancy with it. But as it emerges, you have to adapt with it and you have to learn it. And you got to hope that we can control it for sure. Use it to the best of our ability.
Totally agree with that. I love that we can use our data more efficiently. We collect all this data, and unless you manually go and look at it, what do you do with it? Now you can set some parameters, say, hey, look in all these logs. Do you see any trends? Do you see something that's outside of these bounds and you're not having to look at all of those little things in an Excel sheet? That's just the tip of the iceberg, but us being able to utilize our data to make better decisions, that's really how we're utilizing it in this infancy of it.
Yeah, and that's a big thing for Pyxis is we see data is king, right? So we want to provide as much as possible, even down to even if it's a multi-parameter sensor, something that allows you to see every aspect of what's happening and constantly, no matter how you want to receive it. So yeah, data is king.
Well, Jake, if somebody wants to find out more about Pyxis, what should they do?
They should head to pyxis-lab.com. They should head to our LinkedIn page. So that'd be just look up Pyxis Lab Incorporated. We're on YouTube, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, and you can always reach out to us. We have a direct number. It's 866-203-8397.
Now, I was going to transition to the lightning round questions, but you sparked another question. You guys have a great social media presence. You guys do these fun videos. A lot of people are hesitant to get started. Oh, people are going to think I'm going to be silly or I'm looking stupid or whatever that is. You guys just have fun with it. What advice do you have for people that are trying to get on social media?
Be yourself. There's a heavy need for authenticity right now in the world. And I think that if you've seen obviously you're alluding to the videos where sometimes it's quite literally me just messing around, but there's something that's authentic about that. And I don't necessarily keep up too much with the metrics as long as people are enjoying themselves and finding the content to be informative, then it works for me. So authenticity, be yourself.
All right. Now you have heard the lightning round. Now you are about to undertake the lightning round. Are you ready?
Oh yeah, let's do it.
All right, Jay. Question number one. If you could go back in time and talk to your former self on your very first day as a water treatment marketing professional, what advice would you give yourself?
I would say calm down. Number one, there's a lot of industries to learn, a lot of applications to learn, a lot of technology to learn, but calm down because you'll get that information over time. And again, be yourself, be authentic. And I would tell myself that I got this.
You got this. There you go. I love that. What are the last few books that you've read?
I have been on a huge Stephen King kick right here. I just read The Outsider. I'm reading a book called Dark Half right now. I've read Under the Dome, which was a super intriguing, almost timely book. So huge Stephen King kick right now.
I would argue that he is the Mark Twain of our time.
He definitely is. And there's like different eras of King too. So it's cool to see the transition from like early on in his career to the more recent books like Under the Dome or The Outsider.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that he wrote things like Shawshank Redemption and Green Mile.
Yeah, the classics, even in the movie industry. I think quite literally, like almost every book has been adapted into some kind of movie or series.
I read it. I was maybe 11 or 12 years old.
Oh no.
I can't stand clowns to this day.
Yeah,
That was the scariest book. I know they've done some remakes and stuff. The most recent one, that was just weird. That is the most terrifying book you will ever read in your life. And you will look at clowns so much differently.
Yes.
Ugh, Pennywise. Oh, okay. We got to move on from that. All right. So when Hollywood makes a movie about Jake Deak, who plays Jake?
Oh my gosh, I would love to say Ryan Reynolds, but this is like later on. This is down the road. Ryan Reynolds, right? I would go Reynolds, Gosling type, 100%.
Like in a Deadpool type thing?
Yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be sick.
All right, final question. If you could talk to anybody throughout history, who would it be with and why?
I would say either Tom Edison or Tesla, like that portion, that era of American history, but then Edison in particular, like within our industry, General Electric, obviously now Suez Veolia, that transition over time. I would love to see Edison's take on like the growth of GE post him and how it branched off into such a larger platform.
Jake, appreciate you coming on the Scaling Up H2O podcast. And of course, I am honored to be your first guest on your podcast. In fact, we'll make sure we'll put a link on this show notes page to that podcast. Once again, it's called In the Flow by Pyxis and hosted by yourself. Thanks for coming on the Scaling Up H2O podcast.
This has been something that I've really wished to do. I never thought I'd be able to do, so I'm super happy to be here. I appreciate it.
Scaling Up Nation, that was a fun interview. I am so proud of Jake. He's putting even more content out there for us water treaters to be able to use while we are out driving from account to account. And I love being able to share some of the failures, some of the things that I've learned not to do with this podcast with him. And Jake, I am so excited to let the Scaling Up Nation know that you have several episodes out within the flow. And you can go to any podcast player and you can find In the Flow by Pyxis Lab, featuring our very own guest on this podcast, Jacob Deak. And Nation will put a link on our show notes page if you have any issues finding that show. And what an honor. I was the very first guest of that podcast. Jake, Pyxis crew, best of luck to you. We wish the best for you. And also, I want to thank Pyxis. Pyxis has been a sponsor of this podcast for several years. They've been great to work with. And both the sponsorship as well as our company loves using Pyxis Lab tools. As they say, water treaters deserve better tools, and I agree with that. We certainly do. So Pyxis, thank you for helping us make some things better as we are servicing accounts and making things a little bit easier with the things we service our accounts with. We're going to have information for you to find everything that Jake mentioned on this podcast on our show notes page. And Nation, I encourage you that if you are thinking about trying something new, the very first step is the hardest step. If you can envision a staircase in front of you, the very first step is about 10 feet tall. All the other steps look like a regular stair step, but that first one is the biggest jump that you've got to do. But guess what? Once you do it, it is done. And it's not smooth sailing from them, but I truly believe starting is the hardest step. And Nation, whatever you're thinking about doing, you just got to start it and then be consistent to make sure that you are continually doing it. I hope you have a goal in mind that you are thinking of. I hope you wrote it down. And I hope you wrote down what is the first thing that you're going to do so you can get started. That's exactly what I did when I started this podcast. And my very first thing was, how the heck do you put a podcast on the air? I had no idea. I spent an entire weekend watching YouTube videos, and I would watch one video where somebody would say, do it this way. And somebody else would say, no, don't ever do it that way. Do it this way. And then I had to figure out, okay, how am I going to start? And then because I started, I figured out the best way for me. And now we have an entire procedure so you can get a brand new episode each and every week of the Scaling Up H2O podcast. And because we have a procedure, because it's been tried, because it's been tested, because it's been improved, it's actually fun. And Nation, I've done episodes on procedures. I really love procedures because it allows us to not have to worry about the wash, rinse, repeat stuff. That stuff's in the procedure. I just get to have fun and talk with people like Jake, talk with people like we've had on this podcast. And Nation, that's the fun part for me. I get to learn, you get to learn, and we get a brand new episode each and every week of the Scaling Up H2O podcast. Nation, I hope you enjoyed this episode. And as I just said, tune in next week for that brand new episode. I can't wait for you to tell me what you took the first step in. Until then, have a great week, folks. Are you ready to take your water treatment career to the next level? Get the confidence you need to sign up for the Certified Water Technologist exam today by taking our Certified Water Technologist prep course. Learn valuable tools and techniques to help you succeed. Plus, Test your knowledge with our 100-question practice exam. Visit scalinguph2o.com/CWT prep and put yourself on the fast track to certification. Don't wait, start today.